I do this and I tell these stories and I give my perspective because I understand that people learn and grow from new information and new perspectives on information. And man, brother, we've been blessed, right? We've been blessed with a lot of different experiences that we can share with people.
Welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, international speaker. But most people know me because I spent over 12 years in professional baseball with the Detroit Tigers, Cleveland Indians, and Los Angeles Angels, appearing in 3 World Series as a coach before I was the age of 33. Our Winners Find a Way show is all about how the 1% have found a way to overcome those challenges when faced with losses and losing. Winners find a way. I love the quote from the 4 Disciplines of Execution book written by Chris McChesney and Sean Covey. The quote goes, "Winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win." Won't you join us and discover for yourself how you can win too? Hi, welcome to episode number 2, Principles of Winning with Desmond Clark, former NFL player, speaker, and author. For Desmond, life was definitely unsure growing up in all things, but he shares how he was able to handle setbacks and make his life align with what he wants, to developing principles that make him win. A couple of highlights of today's show you will not want to miss. Story of greatness and bringing out the best in you, how his life pivoted at the age of 14, and how if you change your lens, you can change your view. He will talk about overcoming adversities and, of course, his big 5s of self-inventory. Welcome to Winners Find a Way. I am the CEO of Leadershipity. Super excited to talk and welcome my guest, Desmond Clark.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
Oh, man, it's a beautiful day outside. I feel good. So, hey, who can ask for anything better than that?
Right. Well, let's get into this. We're gonna dive into some of those days that weren't so great, right? So, have you ever faced, stiff adversity in your life? You felt like the losses are mounting, you're struggling, and I love the quote from a book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution, right? Written by McChesney and Covey, came out of their institute. It says, "Winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win." And I love that quote because for entrepreneurs, for elite athletes, for the top 1% of folks, Desmond, you face challenges, sacrifices. It gets tough out there along the way. And I know there was probably 10 times in my life I think, like, what am I doing out here? I'm like ready to shut her all down, right? So real quickly, like, tell me, I want to introduce you and we want to get into that a little bit as we talk. But let me introduce you a little bit before we get started. 10 plus years in the NFL, like no joke. Played in the 2006 Super Bowl. You're a Florida guy. You're a native of Florida, right? And, Desmond Clark and I, we are the same name. So people often, recognize us as brothers, right? Like, I'm much older than Desmond, so they would know that I'm his older brother, with all this. If you see us close, like, he's a large, strong man, and I am a short, much older man. So we probably don't look so much. But your brother actually was also a quarterback at ECU, so another college ball player when you were a Wake Forest guy. And I want to talk to you about that a little bit. And then you've got entrepreneur, philanthropist, and the author of The Principles of Winning. What a lot of people don't know about you is when you retired from the Bears, you were number 2 in all-time catches of tight ends behind Hall of Famer and the coach, Ditka. So welcome, buddy.
No, again, I appreciate it, man. You got me on the platform, so I appreciate you doing that for me.
Man, I love it, man. I love what you've done. Tell me a little bit about your brother. Is he older or younger?
No, so my brother is younger. He's still playing. He's still active.
Oh, wow.
He played 3 years in the
Wow.
NFL, and then his last 6 years he's been playing in the CFL. And last year he started for Ottawa Red Blacks. But he, like I said, 6 years is going to be his 7th year. So 10 years as a professional athlete.
Wow.
Yeah.
Another the things that most people don't know about you. That's pretty awesome. So let's talk about when I talked to you, you and I have been friends for a while. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and talk to me about your why coming on the show, man. I talked to you like, hey, winners find a way. Like, what does that go into your mind, and like, what are you thinking right away? Like, hey, I'm gonna go talk to Trent about this. What are you thinking?
Most importantly, I do this and I tell these stories and I give my perspective because I understand that people learn, and grow from new information and new perspectives on information. And man, brother, we've been blessed, right? We've been blessed with a lot of different experiences that we can share with people. And hopefully we are a conduit to people just being better and becoming better. It's a lot of people out here that have greatness within them. But sometimes, I don't know about you, but like for me, it took other people to bring that out of me.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
I'm hoping every time that I'm on a show like yours and I write a book and I do the things that I do, hopefully I'm inspiring someone out there to bring out that greatness within them. So that's the reason why I do this.
I love that, man. I love that. And it's funny when you hit on that point, like as parents where, people push me and they push me hard, right? Like, and I think about that, like, I remember like it wasn't so great in that moment, but man, like how thankful I am for that now of like getting the best of me when they knew there was more and I didn't know there was more.
Right.
Right. So let's take it back to the kids. Well, I don't know if there was ever a little Desmond Clark because this dude is one full man. I'm telling you, like this guy's legit. But like younger Desmond Clark, like tell me about that impact pivot moment, like where you knew like, hey man, this is what I want to do. Like I think I've got this greatness inside me and I'm going for something big.
So for me, it was more so of getting out of the situation that I was in because of, family dynamics. Father being drug addicted, which left me, my mom, my brothers kind of just out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes.
So when the moment was, I didn't want to be, and I didn't want to have to succumb to what I seen around me, right? Half of my family on drugs, most of my family living paycheck to paycheck, and not even paycheck to paycheck, food stamps to paycheck to food stamps, those type of things. And at the age of 14, and I tell this story in my book, my father was shot and he was blinded. So he used to actually pull me into the back room and ask me to help him light his crack pipe for him. And it was one day after doing that, I was walking home and I just said, you know what? I'm going to be successful. And I told my mom that when I got home. And I think at the age of 14, that was that pivotal moment. It didn't have anything to do with sports. It didn't have anything to do with playing football or none of that. It was, I just want to do something with my life. And playing football and playing sports was that pathway for me to actually accomplish those things.
Yeah. Wow, that's tough, right? Like I think there's a lot of people that can relate to your story, and there's a lot of people that can't imagine that story, right? Like being in that situation, like I think I've seen that on a made-for-TV movie, right? Like, but like I'm living this, right? And I was involved with a charity called All Pro Dad, which is over in Tampa, right down there, and Coach Dungy, right, who you saw in that Super Bowl, I remember. And so, that was one of the real challenging things that I found when I found kids of broken homes and some desperate times. One of the challenges was that a lot of kids felt like, hey, I'm going to be what my father is, like whether he was in prison or made bad choices and was gone or like. And I was so determined to make sure that kids knew, like, you don't have to make the same decisions that your father made. Like, he made his, and right or wrong, like, hey, I'm not here to judge, right? Not my position. I'm not qualified, right? And so, but like, you don't have to. There are all sorts of different things for you that are possible.
Right. Absolutely. And I think when people are exposed to something different, right? It's all about exposure. All they see is what they see. That's all that they understand,
yes.
Right? You can't understand outside of anything that you experience. So again, it just goes back to what I said when you asked me the question, why do I do this? The same reason that you were doing it for All Pro Dads, to give these kids another experience, another piece of exposure to say, you know what, there's other things out here. And today on my post, I don't know when it's going out, but the question that I propose to people is, what was that life-changing moment in your life that really say, okay, this is why I'm here where I'm at right now? And for me, one of those things were going up to New York for a basketball camp. My high school went up there, and it wasn't even a basketball camp. It was when we went on top of the World Trade Centers.
Yeah.
And we were on top of it, not looking out a window, but on top of it in the air. And I could look over all of New York City. And that's when I realized, I said, damn, it's a huge world out here.
Yeah.
So that opened me up. That expanded me. That gave me like it made me dream bigger than what I was dreaming, because I was out of my element and I knew it was other elements out here. So that piece of exposure helped me to grow, right? And if I wouldn't have had that piece of exposure, who knows how big or how small my thinking would have been without that.
I love that. Like, and we talk about like changing your lens. You literally changed your view, right? Like, and you got that like right away. Let's real quickly before we move on, tell people right now like where they can find you, Des, because I know people are looking for you. They probably want the book, Principles of Winning. I am going to give everybody a chance to do some Q&A with Des here and myself after the end. But like right now, where can they find you?
Des Clark 88, and that's DEZ Clark 88, Twitter, Instagram. I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. Just look up my name, Desmond Clark. Facebook, same thing, Desmond Clark. I got a profile on there that's my regular profile, and then a professional page. So either one of those pages. But I'm accessible, man. I always give out my phone number too, 863-581-5161, and they missed it, so I'm gonna say it one more time, 863-581-5161. And people say, why do you do that? Like, don't you have? They have this thing called block on there.
Yeah. Like, right. Like, yeah. You start blowing it up wrong. Like, hey, well, we won't see you anymore, man. Like, yeah.
So, that's where people can find me at. And I just try to be open to being helpful to people whenever I can.
That's awesome. So we're getting some questions in the chat, which we're going to save. If you're putting your questions in the chat, that's awesome. We're so glad you're on. Please, we're going to go through those at the end, and I'm going to keep kind of moving through Desmond right now. But let's dive into this winners find a way, right? I'd like to hear about one of those moments where you were absolutely up against it. You're losing. The data's showing, we're losing. And then you found a way to come back and win. Down but not out. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. And it was after winning, right? It was after my 2001 season. 51 catches, 6 touchdowns, right? Tied for the league lead with Tony Gonzalez that year for 6 touchdowns for a tight end. I'm on cloud 9. I'm going into restricted free agency, signed a $1.2 million deal. I made it. I'm good. Wife is pregnant with twins, just bought a new house. Everything is great. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be a Denver Bronco for the rest of my life. They bring Shannon Sharp back. Okay, that's fine. Shannon Sharp only got a couple more years to play. I'm still, getting paid. Everything is good. Boom, training camp happened. I break my arm, and I don't know if you guys can see that.
Oh, yeah, we can see that.
I break my arm. And, okay, I'm still good. I'm going to be out for 6 weeks. I'll be okay. But as professional athletes, we know in training camp when they come and say, hey, Desmond, grab your playbook, coach needs to talk what time that is, right? Cut. And it shocked the hell out of me when it happened because, my ego and my statistics and just signing a deal told me I'm going to be here. I get cut and I have to go home and tell my pregnant wife with twins, I don't have a job. And I told her that and she rolled back over and said, stop playing.
yeah, right. Like, yeah, this isn't the time to be joking around, right?
It's real. I don't usually be home at this time. So,
right.
So now I don't understand how this stuff is supposed to play out. I've never been in this position. Then I get picked up by Miami. So I go into Miami, no training camp. I come in the first week of the season. They drafted Randy McMichael in the 4th round. The dude is blowing up. Like, he's all over ESPN making diving touchdowns. And it's his position once I get there. And they got another good tight end. And you know this, when you go to a different team, it's a different language. They got a new offense. This far from speaking English, and now you got to learn Spanish. Couldn't pick up the plays fast enough to get on the field, and I was struggling. So by week 2 or 3, they just went on. And I'm just stuck. Like, I can't get on the field. I'm not going to be playing on offense at all. And I'm thinking, man, here I am thinking I'm going to be a starter, and I'm not even getting on the field. I'm 3rd team, scout team, tight end. I literally had to ask myself, so what do I do now? Because my ego is damaged, right?
Right.
And I'm not making $1.2 million. I'm making minimum now. So I just said to myself, let me just try to get on the field the best way I can. I just want to play football. I went to the special teams coach, and I had to beg the special teams coach to let me play special teams. And he finally relented and let me get on one special teams. I did what I had to do on that special teams. Then that led to the 2nd special teams, to the 3rd special teams. And then by the end of the year, I was on all special teams. And I was dominating on special teams, right? So the year's over. I caught 2 passes that year after catching 51. The Chicago Bears called me. I only had 2 offers. One from Miami, which it was all incentive laden, and then and then Chicago. Chicago offered me 6 years, $9 million, and at that time, that was top 10 for tight ends. And here's what they told me. They said, we knew that you could be a good tight end, but we didn't understand the character that you had for playing football, which you showed playing special teams. And that was a lesson to me. Like, I didn't know that I was actually doing this, but when you're not on top of your game, when there are certain things that you can't do, there's always something that you can do. And now I live by this. Don't let what you cannot do. And for me, I couldn't get on the field on offense, get in the way of what you can do. I could play special teams. I had to humble myself. I had to go and beg to play on special teams after, I'm thinking I'm going to be a starter. But that was a lesson to me. Just never let what I cannot do interfere with what I can do. Always do what you can do within that situation to move the needle forward. It may not be moving as fast as you want to, but you still have to move it forward. And that was one of the best lessons that I learned playing professional sports, is getting cut and having to fight my way back to being looked at as a starter again.
So many good lessons in that, man. Like, there's so many things there, right? That it's really good. So one of the things I'm really impressed with actually about the Bears is I tell a lot of kids as they're coming up, like, hey, everyone's watching all the time. Like, they're watching everything. They're watching how you get in line at the water cooler and how you take your turn, or if you're bullying your way in. If you're, how you treat the wait staff when you're out to dinner, and now the Bears, to their credit, are watching this guy who they're going 51-2. What gives? But wait a minute, look, this guy's got 14 tackles on special teams. He did this, he did that. You're a holder for my man Paul Edinger, Spartan. So I just want to, give Paul some props.
In Chicago, and he was my high school teammate. I helped him in high school. You didn't know?
Oh, right. Like, come on, man. See, there's Spartan connection right there. So that's awesome. So that's the thing. Like, hey, willing to do the extra. Go the extra mile. Like, hey, I could sit here and wallow in what's not going right, or I can step up and try to figure it out and get going. So let's kind of pivot to, what do you think the one thing is that separates you from others? I mean, you catapulted to the 1%. It's rare air, man. I mean, what's the average in that league? Like 1.7 years or something? Like, it's nothing, right? Like, it's a hello, hey, cup of coffee, thanks for coming, see you later, right? Like, that's a hard league, 10 plus years. What separates you from others that got you that superpower?
I would say probably just mindset and focus, because I never really took the path of least resistance, so to speak. I do believe that when you do the hard things early, you set yourself up to live easy on the back end. And so I think it's just more so mindset, because what people don't understand about me is that when I went into the league with a score of 37 out of 100 on my combine grade. You know how a grading system works. Big fat F.
Yeah, on all scales. 37 out of 100 is not good. All right, folks? Just to break that down.
And so I'm slow. I'm weak. I'm small. I'm 6'2" and 7/8. I was 252 pounds, and I bench pressed 225 12 times. We have freaking receivers and quarterbacks that do way more. But I think because of the mindset of, hey, I'm not a finished product. I continue to get better, and I'm not going to settle for where I'm at right now. And I'm not going to think that where I'm at right now is where I'm going to stay. And again, don't let what you can't do get in the way of what you can do. I couldn't run like Shannon Sharp. I wasn't big like Dwayne Carswell. They called him House. I couldn't do the things that they could do at that point. But what I could do is practice and continue to get better. And that was my mindset. I can get there if I just keep putting in the effort and putting in the work. And I think that's the thing that set me apart, because you know this. You played with a lot of great players, and you played with a lot of potential great players, but they stopped putting in the work, and they settled to, I'm as good as I want to be. I get no better. And then what happens? Somebody else comes up and.
Yeah, I often say, like, the best people often ask me, like, hey, who's the best player you ever coached? And I'm like, oh, you don't know him. And like, what do you mean? Like, I'm like, oh, like, I saw absolutely fabulous athletes who just stopped getting better. They couldn't do the things like you're talking about, no self-control, right? No self-discipline. So other people always had to discipline them, right? And it was just exhausting. And that foundation of, hey, how do I carry myself to do the work and be disciplined and persevere through hard things? And you know, talent's just one factor. And you know, it's funny because you're one of those guys, like, the talent's crazy, right? Like, there's so much talent, and the ability in between each, it's fractional, right? Like, it's fractional. And you're another one of these cases of, you know, you and Brady, right? Like, these poor combines, quote unquote poor, right? That weren't staggering off the chart with lots of success, right? We come back to that grit and that effort and how much that counts, and that sustainability in that continued effort as skill just continues to raise with 100% effort, and it just keeps rising up.
Right. And that's what it's all about, just continued improvement. And before I forget about it, something just came back in my mind. You were speaking earlier about people are always watching, right? And I live by this. Anything that you do should be how everything your standard is your standard. You don't lower your standard over here and then raise your standard over here. Standards should be the same, no matter if you know you're talking to someone on the streets or talking to the president, how you work when no one is looking, or how you work out with your teammates. You should have the same standard all the time.
I love that, man. I love that, because you do see it, and it's a great lesson for kids, right? Because we do have those, hey, I'm in class with all the college prep work and all the high level classes, and I carry myself this way with them. But, you know, hey, with my buddies down at, you know, at the gym, and when we're out at the club, we're over here like, wait, no. Wait a minute. Let me get a TO, because I like what you said, that it's your standard.
Right.
It's not anybody else's. You have to put your name on that. You have to own that standard, and it should be consistent. And I'm always shocked at how many people think, like, hey, when Des and Trent are watching, so I'm busting my butt. And then they think when we turn our back, like, nobody else is watching and nobody else sees it, and they take, 5 reps off. Wait a minute, man. Like, people are always watching.
And here's the thing: if you want to be in the 1%, if you want to sustain a certain level of success and be able to maintain it, it doesn't matter who's watching. You know if you're putting in the work.
That's right.
All that should matter. Like, so this morning, I work out with my daughter in the morning, and somebody in that class hit 100% output, right? because you got on the heart monitor.
Yeah.
So I go back. I drop my daughter off to school, and I always go back for a second workout. But I was like, all right, I want to hit 100%. I haven't done it yet. So I went in and I'm working. I'm doing the boxing. I'm doing jumps and everything. And I get up to 92, 93, 94%. And I'm going, woo, 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 woo. And I get up to 96%, but I was like, I don't have it. But then I started thinking, man, you're a little sick. Like, you're in here by yourself, and and to me, it didn't matter who's seen it. It was just between me and me that I was pushing the hardest to hit that 100%. I wasn't trying to prove it to nobody but myself.
Love it.
And I love it. Get there.
Yeah, right. Hey, you got next week. Des. It's coming. It's coming for you. So let's talk about, a lot of folks can't get overcome. When they get overcome, they can't get back up, right? We always talk about fall down 7, get up 8, right? But man, when you're down, like, it hurts. Like, and there's a lot of responses to that. There's anger, there's frustration, there's I have a little ebook we did about the confidence game, right? And you see it in athletes as, like, confidence leaves their body, right? And I'm going to have you talk to that a little bit later. One of our folks, they want to see you talk about, like, the speed of the game and how that language, how fast it is going. And we're going to have you talk about that in a little bit. But when it's down, tell me, like, when you were there, and you could see and you could feel that confidence being lost. Like, what do you think, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently when that hits? What would you do? What would be your go-to when it starts trending the wrong way?
Something that first of all, I never did understand that you fall down 7 times, you get up 8, because if you fall down, you get up, you fall down, you get up, you fall down, you get up. Fall down 7 times, you're going to get up 7 times. I never did understand that. So I'm always, when people, and I know that's just something that we say, but whoever made that up, they need to go back and check that. But the thing that always did, and not just in sports, Trent, this is in life. This is one of those life things where when you feel like you're not on your game, when you feel like you're not performing, I always did something what I call take self-inventory, right? Like, what's really going on with sit here and let me figure this out. And really, it's all about me questioning what am I doing from day to day? What are those habits? I may be thinking I'm performing and putting in the effort, but let me just check and let me just really be honest with myself. Am I really doing what I think I'm doing? That's something that's always got me back to level, right? And this is a personal story. Even when I was going through my second divorce in 2017, it was the end of 2016 when I said, you know what? I talk about my 5Fs: faith, family, fitness, finances, and fun. Because life for me at that point, it wasn't good. Like, I'm struggling. And I had to sit down and say, all right, let's talk about faith. Am I doing the stuff that I preach, that I say it takes to be successful with my faith? Am I doing the stuff with my family that I say it takes to be successful? The same thing with fitness, the same thing with my finances. And, I leave fun out because when you got all those other 4 things in place, then you can have a whole lot of fun. I had to be honest with myself. I was like, no, the faith is not there. You know what? I'm not talking to my kids as much as I should be talking to my kids. Fitness, I was overweight. I was 270 pounds when I'm ordinarily around 250. You know what I'm saying? Actually, I was screwed up. And January 1st of 2017, when everybody makes their,
that resolution.
For me, it was a renewed life resolution. And I checked myself and I was like, I got to put these things in order. These are the things that when I send out my little note cards to people, it's on the back and I'm telling everybody else about these things, but I'm not preaching. I'm not performing the habits that I talk about, that I truly believe in. So when things stopped going right for me, I started looking at the things that I truly believe in, my values and things like that, and say, am I performing these things at the level that I need to be successful? So that's what I do. I call it just taking self-inventory.
Well, let me recap that real quick because I love it. The 5 F's are the self-inventory, right? Like, I mean, that is locked in. So quiet time, like I'm going to take this time for me. You sit alone. I need to go and take this inventory for me. And you've got a structure with that with your 5 S's that are knockout, man. Like that's big time, right? And of course you can read about that in the book, right? By the way. So let's talk a little bit about the one value, belief, action that you took when you were down that turned things for you. And what I heard you say, and it may be different, but what I heard you say before was that one thing was you turned to, I think it was humility, right? Like I can sit here and say, well, I should be the starter, but I'll humble myself and go do what I can do. But maybe I'm not hearing more. Maybe there's more to that.
Yeah, I think when like you boil it all down and come to the essence of everything, it's all about, your name and your word. Who are you? Look at yourself like, who am I really? And that's hard to do because we got so many people, especially being professional athletes. And it doesn't matter if you like got a high paying job, an important position in society, you have so many people telling you, you're great, you're great, you're great. Oh man, like, Desmond, you call fit, all of that stuff, right? And then you really have to sit back and say, who am I as a person? What does my name and my word means importantly to me? And what is that representative of? What and I call it brand a lot. What's my personal brand?
What do I stand for? Like what and am I living it?
Exactly.
All right, so let's talk about that one belief, value, other actions that you'd recommend to others on their journey when things get hard and they're on the road to being elite. Like they're gonna get some setback, right? The brand, the standard, critical, right? There may be some humility involved, right? And be okay with that. Like humility to me is not a sign of weakness. And I know like there's a challenge at that top level because confidence can bleed to arrogance in a moment, right? And quite frankly, that confidence is so edgy because it'll slip up into arrogance, it'll slip down into like gone, like it just went through the tub drain. Like, wait a minute, who let the water out? Like, where did my confidence go? Just like that. So if you were saying to somebody right now as they go and they're on the road to being elite, what's that one quality, that one action that they're going to absolutely need on this journey?
I'm going to say that the thing that they need to do is they need to write it down. And when I'm talking about, just like I said, I see my purpose statement all the time. I see my 5 F's all the time. I know what I'm about, so I can always go back to that. That keeps me grounded. It gives me purpose. It gives me navigation, and to develop something that you can always go back to say, you know what? When I need to get going, I go back to this, And for me, I wrote down the things that were valuable, the things that are important to me. How did I get here on these things right here? I got here by thinking like this. I journal a lot. Like, I remember I was just reading a few weeks ago in 2013, I was journaling about how I didn't have that leader. I didn't have anybody I could look up to because I had just retired from the league and I didn't have that structure. I know I was able to play 12 years in the league because I had good coaches, right? And I went and I looked at those coaches for advice, for the know-how, for that. I didn't have that. So I'm looking, I was like, man, I have that now. But I was writing it down and I remember how I was successful. So I tried to duplicate that in today's life to do that. I got so many wonderful people around me now that help me out, that coach me, that gives me the wisdom and all that stuff, just like when I played football. So just write the stuff down now as you're going through it so you can always go back to it and understand how did you get to where you're at.
That's awesome. So I love it, man. I think when you write it down and you just play those goals, I like that quote, plan the work and then work the plan. So if you write it down, you plan the work, right? Like you get down and say, hey, this is what I'm about. You know what got you. And I like the fact that taking an inventory also of what got you here, like those success patterns, what is our strengths, and how do those strengths, they'll transition and translate into other skills. You could take that hard work and effort, and you've done it in your insurance company. You've done it in your authorship and your writing, and you've done it in your speaking business. Like you've used those skills and used that. I love that about you. Man, it's a great walk, Des, as we go through this. Let's finish up with a time. Anything else that you want to say? The best way to win. Is there something that you want to share with the listeners that we did not touch on today? That may be one of those characteristics that you think pretty critical, that would add value to anyone as they drive in on their journey for that 1%.
Oh man, and I'm looking at it, and I wish I could turn it around and show it to you, but that other side is a mess. I'm looking at my calendar right now, and it says, always choose your standards over your feelings. And that's
over your feelings?
Over your feelings.
Okay.
Because our feelings have us doing this, right?
Yeah, they often pull us along as opposed to our standards driving us.
Right? We're going to have feelings. We're humans. But like we talked about earlier, your standards are here. And you got to rely on your standards to pull you through, not your feelings. Your feelings will trick you. If somebody say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, you feel a certain way. Say the right thing or overinflate your ego, you could be feeling the wrong way. What's the standard? Always choose your standard over your feelings.
I love that. Share your where they can find you again here.
Des Clark 88, DEZCLARK 88 on Instagram and Twitter. And then Desmond Clark on Facebook and on LinkedIn. So, and I encourage everybody to go to LinkedIn. That's where I do most of my stuff, most of my writing and most of my posts. But I'm active on all of them.
That's perfect. I'm Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity. You can find us at leadershipity.com. We are on Instagram, Twitter, Trent M. Clark. I am also on LinkedIn a lot as well. You can find me almost anything at Trent M. Clark or Leadershipity. And please, you're here at our YouTube channel of Leadershipity. We always try to provide high quality content. People like world class, like Desmond Clark here. So, and look for our upcoming ebook, The Pyramid of Leadershipity, which is it's going to be super exciting. You're always welcome to DM or email me. I am at Trent@leadershipity.com. Unlike Des, I don't give out my phone number. I'm now thinking about it, Des. I'm like, man, maybe I should be giving out my phone number, but. If you enjoyed today's episode, continue to listen. Winners find a way. Give us 5 stars. Work hard to deliver value and stories of our 1% leaders around us for every episode. So thrilled Des could join us. I'm going to leave you this last one, Des. Quote of the day. What's your kind of favorite quote, like your go-to, man? Before we're going to do Q&A, but I want to give your go-to verse or quote, whatever you go to.
I think I might have already said it. Man, I said a lot of them. Right?
Yeah, you said some good ones, right?
But here's one that I love. You never reach the level of your expectations. You always fall to the level of your training.
I think that came out of the SEALs, right? Like they were like, hey, you'll only go to where you're trained. I love that. I'm going to go to a little Bible verse today. I'm going to go to Hebrews 12:11. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it will produce a harvest of righteousness and peace for those that are trained by it. We've talked a lot today about training it up, doing the work, taking the action after you plan that action. And Desmond, you're a living testament of a guy who actually just stood through it, went through the action, did the hard work, came back again and again, didn't let them tell you no. Listen, I think a lot of people come out of the combine at 37 out of 100 and say, well, I guess this isn't going to be for me. No one may be able to take a shot on me, right? Right. So I love that you persevered. So
real quick, what was that verse again? Because I need to catch that one.
Yeah, Hebrews 12:11. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but often painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those that have been trained by it. And I think that's all of us, right? We don't, man, you and I laugh because when people ask me about like, oh man, you guys must have really suffered through that hill running and people are vomiting, right? Like it's hard. Like, man, I look back at that like, hey, when Des and I were in that, like, I mean, you go to something great. You win the conference title. Like, I never looked back on that as chronic pain. That's acute pain to me. Like, it hurt in the moment, but like the chronic pain is regret, right? Like that, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, you choose, right? And that pain of discipline is acute. It doesn't last that long. The chronic is the regret, like, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. I wish I would have done this. I didn't have the discipline at the time. And I should have been listening to those who were training me and helping me reach that potential. I'll always talk about that. But let's get to some Q&A for Des. Like, when you were coming up, you talked about the view of the top, but was there a person that you looked for inspiration?
Absolutely. That was my mom. Sure. She was that rock, right? And I actually kind of thought about what that actually means, because we say a lot of stuff and it's like, what does that really mean? But that rock is like something that's it doesn't move. It's there. It can, go through all of the stormy weather and it's there. And that's who she was for me. And she gave me that example of how to live life, like how to be steady. You know what I'm saying? When my dad left, which my dad, he came back and he's a wonderful dad now, but for, a 10-year period, I don't know. But she built herself up from where we were basically, we didn't have a place to live and then didn't have lights and have food, to giving us a really good life at the end of our teenage years. And just seeing how she did that over time, just constantly working and constantly building. She was my inspiration, and she was someone who I always looked to.
Yeah, that question was from Prinz, and thank you, Prinz. I appreciate that. I got a question it's actually from a company. I don't know who's on there, from the Allegra Marketing. Maybe somebody who knows you. I don't know.
I know that guy.
Oh, you do? Because they had heard you speak before on the locker room tour, right? And you described that walkthrough of how fast like a play actually happens in the NFL, and like the absolute speed of this going on. And then you talked about before, you hit on it as like, hey, going to a new team, man. I just went from English to Spanish, and I don't know the language, man. Like, so walk us through that.
Okay, so that's Brian, by the way, at Allegra. I appreciate you tuning in, Brian, and keep tuning in, Mr. Clark here. But what I was telling him, I was saying it's not always about athletic prowess. To play the professional game, you got to be able to think, right? And I was telling him how we call a play, hey, let's go deuce right, X motion, 225, X go, Y flare. Boom, and we got to get out of the huddle. And then we go to the line, right? And as the quarterback is going, blue 19. All right, now I got to decide, all right, I got to maneuver around this linebacker, right? And then blue 19. And then he moves. And then the whole defense just shifts, right? I got to do something else. And now set, hut, and then they rotate to something else. And right before the snap, I was supposed to run a corner route where I break it high. But now they just blitz, right? And so now I got to think about, my God, he just blitzed. So when he blitzed, he's not going to be picked up. He's going free to the quarterback. So instead of running the corner route, I now have to run an out route and come out of it real quick so the quarterback has somewhere to throw the ball to, because I'm the hot route.
That's right.
All of that happened in a matter of 5 seconds.
Oh yeah, or less, right? Like, or less. Like, right?
And that's with the cadence, with him going blue 19. But once the ball snaps, all of that move, that happens in a second. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you have to be able to process information quickly to be a professional. And you know this, trying to hit a freaking curveball.
Right. Like, yeah, especially when you're looking dead heat, man. You're looking 100 and all of a sudden it's filthy, right?
Right. So that's
yeah, I think that split second adjustment, like, it's probably one of the things that athletes underestimate, that superpower in the real world, their ability, their adaptability, because you really get that from sports. You watch a lot of film and you learn what's about to happen, and adaptability actually becomes a little bit of second nature, because as you keep doing, and of course you get so many reps at being adaptable, right? Whereas other people, like, hey, we had one thing change last year. Like, I'm sorry, we had 5 things change that last play. Like, it's so odd that it's definitely a superpower of athletes that I think, even as ourselves, we underestimate, if that's fair.
Right. No, we really do. To be able, one of the things that I always try to do, if it don't make sense, it doesn't make sense, right? So processing information out here in the real world is something that I rely on heavily. If all the information makes sense, then it makes sense. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and then I have to question it.
That's right.
So, that's something that I definitely use, but I don't necessarily think about it like I do playing sports.
All right, next question from New Gen. What best principle you can share for me to win? You've already named a lot, right? Like, and if you've got something, I'm good. You got the principles of winning, so you got lots of them, right? And I know you talked about with me.
Here's the whole list of them.
Yeah, right. Like we might have to put the hot list up on the YouTube page so that everybody can see. Des Clark's all the winning principles because you're right. It's hard to point to one, but if you could.
First of all, let me just define principle for someone. Principles are things that are irrefutable. You can't argue with it. You cannot argue with it. Because if you flip it over and do the opposite, it's going to have a totally detrimental effect, right? First, understand that. And
that's good. That's good clarity. That's good. I like that.
Now, I just looked at one, and one of those things that I really believe in is that the game is won in the preparation. A lot of people think, all right, they just go out on the field and play. If we just went out on the field and played, it'll look like total chaos. There's so much preparation that goes into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday before we get to Sunday. That's where the game is won. Because if we don't know what to do, if I don't know how to break off that hot route, if I don't know how to recognize that blitz, if I don't know my blocking assignments, I don't know how to adjust, there's no way that we can win the game, but all that came in preparation. So the game is actually won in preparation, not only in sports, but in life also.
Love it. I'm reminded of Harvey McKay. He was former owner of the Twins, entrepreneur, wrote some great books. You might have heard of, Beware of the Naked Man Who Offers You a Shirt. He had some great titles. He said something right up your line, Desmond, that just, you made me think of that, where he said, everybody wants to win the day of the game, but few are willing to prepare for it. And I was like, man, that's right. Everyone's sitting next to me. He's like, yeah, man, I hope we win. I'm like, man, hope's not a strategy. We needed to be doing all that work back there, because if we come to this now, I don't like our chances, right? That's so good. Man, preparation, right? So for you out there, New Gen, that principle, this isn't immutable, right? An immutable principle. If you want to be elite, you will have to prepare. That's the principle. And I love it, man. That's so strong, Des. Okay, from Natnas, I've got, how do you deal with nerves when dealing with something new? Or man, you played in the Super Bowl, man. People always ask me about the big, I coached in 3 World Series. People are freaking out, right? It's the go, man. And in football, it's really even bigger. At least in baseball, you got to win 4 of them, right? In football, it's one and done. Man, I hope the things go well. And heaven forbid it rains, right? And so, the conditions can change, adaptability, your nerves are going crazy. Talk to us about what you do when it's new and then after football and you got to adjust. What do you do?
Well, first of all, Trent, you just hit me in my heart, because the only Super Bowl that it ever rained in was the Super Bowl that I played in.
Right.
So, oh my God. So, but those nerves, right? Again, we're human. Here's one way to not have as many nerves on game day. Go back to preparation, because you're ready for it. But still, with that, you still have nerves that's bubbling up. But you just got to embrace it. Don't try to fight it. It's okay that you got butterflies. I played with some players that they threw up before every game. That they were going to throw up before every game. They embraced it. That was part of their routine, right? Throw up before the game so I can get rid of the nerves. So I just say embrace it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just human nature. We get nervous when when we have big things coming up, when we have to have that big sales presentation, or, we're getting ready to take that test for the new license, nerves are going to come. It's okay. Embrace it and just know that that's part of it. Don't let it take you down a path that it doesn't have to take you down. That's when the nerves become something that's negative. When you start letting it mess with your mind and oh man, I'm nervous. You're supposed to be nervous. Big. This is huge. You're gonna be nervous. Be nervous and understand that that's part of it. Don't try to fight it. But the like going back to it, one of the ways that you can kind of curb it is just being prepared.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that. And I think what we know now, right, is those nerves serve us. Like your nervous system heightens up, your awareness, your vision, everything changes because of those nerves. That nervous system operating for you is actually serving you if you can get it to serve you, right? And so by embracing it, I love that. As soon as you said the vomit, I was thinking of Remember the Titans, the coach's first game, and he's over behind the wall, man, like we get nervous, but the training does take over, right? Like every single time, because my guess is that 2 minutes into that game, your only focus is doing your job to the best of your ability and making every rep count to the best. Like you don't take a play off. You don't, do anything that you wouldn't normally do. And because you've learned how to do it right so many times, your body knows exactly what needs to do. And so now these nerves that serve you in this situation actually heighten the awareness of your vision, your speed. You can use it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And going back to the Super Bowl, Trent, I was coming out of that tunnel, man, and seeing all those bulbs flashing and stuff. The excitement, it was probably more excitement that turned into nerves, right? Because a young man, you dream about this, and here you are walking into your dream, right? I was nervous and excited, and I actually had to go to the sideline and just breathe and tell myself, this is just a football game. And then we returned the opening kickoff.
Devin. Yeah, Devin has to.
Okay. Just breathe, calm down, and just do your job.
That's so good, man. That is so good. And it's funny. And you hear that. I love that people say that, right? They go like, hey, yeah, how you doing? Living the dream. No, you were actually living the dream. like this is what you'd hoped for your whole life. And now all of a sudden, like the moments, like your dreams have hit a reality. And you know what, Des, is like so few people actually get to experience that, right? Right. Like it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. If you can't embrace that in that moment, something's wrong, right?
And just think about like people who they're having their first kid. Like that's one of those moments, right? Oh,
yeah.
God, what am I? Ooh, she is coming out.
Yeah, like this is actually gonna happen.
Yeah, you're gonna be nervous, right?
Yeah.
I've experienced this before. What do I do now that she is here? Goodness. So just embrace it, man, and just know it's part of the game.
That's so good. Well, so glad, Des, that you could spend some time with us. I know your time's valuable, so very thankful that we could get this time together, man. I learned a lot, man. I love it. I love it so much, just hearing you talk about challenges. And, and I think that as we look about that, there's sacrifices along the way. Don't ever think that, winners, it all comes easy. It doesn't. And I'm so thankful, Des, for you today. Can't thank you enough for being here, and I really appreciate everything and wish you the best, and may God bless you always.
Yes, I appreciate it, man. You keep doing what you're doing. Keep leading from the front like you do. And on these interviews, man, just keep pulling these things out of these people. So, hopefully, these things can change paradigms and change lives.
All right. Amen to that, right? Amen to that. For our viewers, hope to see you next time. Thank you for joining us for another Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark. If you love this episode, share this episode with your friends and follow us on whatever podcasting medium you're listening to. If you want more content from us, join us at leadershipity.com or the Leadershipity YouTube channel. You can find us on all the social media networks at either Trent M. Clark or Leadershipity for our award-winning workshop Win with Great Teams. You can find that page on LinkedIn as well as our corporate page, Leadershipity. If you want to win more, it starts with you today. Say it with me now. I have what it takes.